One of the duties of Rome's state priest, the Pontifex Maximus, was to keep Rome's calendar in alignment with the seasons. Because Rome followed a 355-day lunar calendar, each year saw the calendar fall out of alignment with the seasons by approximately 10 days. By 49 BC, when Caesar, who was Pontifex Maximus, marched on Rome, he had spent almost a decade bringing Gaul under Roman subjugation, during which time he had neglected to synchronize the calendar. So, at the beginning of January of the 48 BC year, when Caesar loaded 7 of his legions onto ships for transport across the Adriatic Sea, the calendar was approximately 3 months out of sync. As Marcus Calpurnius Bibulus, in accordance with the calendar, put his fleet into harbor for the winter on the island of Corfu, Caesar understood that the true calendar placed the actual season closer to early fall. And while autumn crossings were not without some risk, he knew the risk was minimal and he was in little danger of shipwreck due to an unexpected winter storm. Bibulus, however, responded to Caesar's crossing by immediately launching his fleet back into the water. And so, 30 of Caesar's empty vessels, returning to Brundisium to collect the balance of Caesar's legions and supplies, were destroyed by Bibulus's fleet. Caesar was now trapped in Greece, and with a reduced force. Taking first the town of Oricum, and then the town of Apollonia, Caesar sent Lucius Vibullius Rufus to the camp of Pompeius Magnus with a proposition that both generals disarm, and submit themselves to the people of Rome for adjudication. Whether or not Pompeius ever considered disarming is uncertain, but with all of Italy under the control of the Caesarians, it's unlikely Pompeius would have foolishly acquiesced to the biased decisions of those he knew favored Caesar's cause. When Lucius Vibullius Rufus did not return, Caesar knew Pompeius had rejected his terms. Approximately 70 miles north, along the coast, was the town of Dyrrhachium, a large port city which Pompeius used to maintain supplies for his huge army. Knowing he might find himself up against Pompeius and his army, Caesar began marching his meager forces toward Dyrrhachium in an effort to stop Pompeius's incoming supply trains. But Pompeius, understanding Caesar's limited options, anticipated this move, and began marching his own troops toward Dyrrhachium. Driving his legions hard, Pompeius marched along paved roads leading to Dyrrhachium, while Caesar, crawling up the coastline, was slowed down by having to cross 3 rivers. Pompeius reached Dyrrhachium first, although it cost him the loss of some of his allies, who dropped off on the forced march. With the fear of Caesar giving rise to low morale within Pompeius's legions, Titus Labienus delivered an impassioned speech to the troops, vowing to follow Pompeius Magnus, no matter the cost to himself. With morale renewed, Pompeius began to march south along the coastline. Caesar, failing to arrive at Dyrrhachium before Pompeius, was forced to retreat back toward the town of Apollonia, where he set up a fortified camp on the south side of the river Apsis. Pompeius's legions continued south until they reached the same river, and then set up camp on the north side. From opposite sides of the river Apsis, Caesar and Pompeius faced one another. With fewer numbers, Caesar hesitated to attack Pompeius's larger forces, and Pompeius was reluctant to send his inexperienced legions against Caesar's hardened veterans. And so both armies remained in a stalemate for weeks, with neither general making any real attempt to draw the other into battle. With no word from Marcus Antonius, who was still in Brundisium with Caesar's remaining 5 legions, as well as his supplies, Caesar began to worry. During civil war, it was not unheard of for a general to withhold his legions, and then commit him to the cause only after ascertaining which side seemed most likely to win. Concerned that Marcus Antonius might simply be biding his time, Caesar ordered a private transport to sail him back to Brundisium, and taking advantage of a storm to avoid enemy ships, Caesar, disguising himself, sailed under the cover of darkness. But the seasonal winter was now upon him, and the waves were so large that the captain of the ship feared they would capsize. "Brave the tempest with a stout heart," cried Caesar, throwing off his disguise. Then he added, "You carry Caesar, and Caesar's fortunes." And though the captain and crew fought the giant waves throughout the night, as the sun rose, and with it the potential to be seen by the enemy fleet, Caesar's boat was forced to return to Greece. Because Bibulus had failed to prevent Caesar's crossing the Adriatic, Bibulus now responded by spreading his fleet to cover every port along the coast in Epirus. Knowing now that Marcus Antonius was not stalling, and that he was still awaiting an opportunity to cross the Adriatic Sea, Caesar employed a strategy that would help create a path for his legate. Because Bibulus was forced to continually go ashore in order to resupply his many naval vessels, Caesar ordered his cavalry to ride south, where they were to harass Bibulus's men at every turn as they attempted to land their vessels. This forced Bibulus to travel further and further away in order to resupply his ships, leaving gaps which afforded Caesar the chance to launch a ship. This ship arrived in Brundisium as Marcus Antonius, along with Caesar's legions, were endeavoring to sail out of the harbor under the command of a captain named Calenus. But Caesar's ship arrived with a message, warning that Bibulus had every port in Epirus guarded. Calenus turned away, followed by the ships carrying Caesar's legions. However, a privately owned vessel, carrying no soldiers, that had planned to cross to Greece by tagging along with Caesar's convoy, did not turn back and sailed right into Bibulus's waiting fleet. Every person on board, both free and slave, man and woman, and even the children who traveled in that vessel were massacred on the orders of Marcus Calpurnius Bibulus. After weeks of being harassed by Caesar's cavalry, unable to resupply both food and drinking water for his men at sea, Marcus Calpurnius Bibulus fell ill. Despite his deteriorating health, he refused to give up his command, or his obsession with stopping Caesar. Pompeius Magnus sent another of his naval commanders, Lucius Scribonius Libo, to assist Bibulus. Libo was not only the father-in-law of Pompeius Magnus's youngest son, Sextus, but he was an intimate of Pompeius as well. Libo, unaccompanied by Bibulus, met with Caesar, and promised to act as a peace envoy to Pompeius Magnus on Caesar's behalf if Caesar would allow Bibulus's ships to land and resupply. Caesar countered that he would permit Bibulus to land and resupply, only after Bibulus allowed Marcus Antonius and the remainder of his legions through the blockade. With nothing resolved, negotiations ended. In poor health and advanced in age, suffering from a lack of clean water and hearty food, and consumed with hatred of Caesar, Marcus Calpurnius Bibulus died aboard his command vessel. As the first man in his family to attain high office, his dignitas, which was not supported by the weight of generations of consular ancestors, was precious to him. As aedile, he was overshadowed by Caesar, who used the office to buy the love of the masses. As consul, Bibulus was overpowered by Caesar's heavy-handed, and often illegal legislative agenda. Despite his person being sacrosanct, he was assaulted during a riot, and had buckets of feces dumped on him. As a pontifex, he was constantly overruled by Caesar's greater office of Pontifex Maximus. In his personal life, Bibulus was also eclipsed by his larger-than-life father-in-law, Marcus Porcius Cato. Even his wife, Porcia, rather than being regarded as the wife of Bibulus, was considered the daughter of Cato. His two eldest sons from his first marriage were butchered to death in Egypt at the hands of the Gabiniani, and Bibulus's only hope to carry on the dignitas he had attached to his family name now fell to his youngest son, more commonly regarded as the grandson of Cato. And so ended the life of a man who had finally dragged his family to the top of Rome's upper echelon of society, only to find himself constantly cast into the shadows of larger political figures. In the wake of Bibulus's death, with his fleet temporarily leaderless, Marcus Antonius, leading the legions which had been stuck in Italy, finally broke through the blockade. In his struggle to outrun Pompeius's fleet, Antonius was forced to sail further up the coast, unable to make a successful landing until he reached the town of Nymphaeum, approximately 40 miles north of Dyrrhachium. As Antonius marched his legions south, both Caesar and Pompeius moved north. Pompeius arrived with plans to intercept Antonius's oncoming forces. So that he might ambush Antonius, Pompeius ordered his men to light no camp fires which might alert Antonius to their location. But the town of Dyrachium, which favored Caesar, got word to Antonius, warning him of Pompeius's ambush. Instead of pressing on, Antonius stopped and set up camp. Now, with Marcus Antonius's legions in a fortified position, and Caesar marching north with his legions, it was Pompeius's turn to retreat. so that he would not find himself attacked on two fronts by Caesar's armies, Pompeius Magnus withdrew, drawing his forces back, and into camp near the coastal town of Dyrrachium. Although Caesar, finally united with Antonius and the rest of his legions, appeared to be in a more secure position, he suffered a severe setback when Pompeius's youngest son, Sextus, commanding one of his father's fleets, attacked and sank every last ship Antonius had used to transport Caesar's legions. Once again, Caesar found himself stranded in Greece, and with Metellus Scipio marching his two Syrian legions across Macedonia, Pompeius Magnus still held the far greater numbers.